Welcome, everybody.
Thank
Welcome to show number 3.
Yes.
Three is a
Yes,
bullet.
represent.
everybody should be wide awake still. Nobody gets tired until many shows later, depending on where
Exactly.
you
We
are
got
in
them
the show.
fresh.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Welcome to show 3. Great job, by the way, to everyone on show 1 and 2. Show 3 congratulates everyone on show 1 and 2. And definitely, as we go into this, stay tuned for the giveaway winners at the end of show 3. I'd like to start actually by thanking Chaos and Jacob, our handler for
Our
this whole,
mentor.
for months, our mentor for months.
Tormentor.
Months. Yes, tormentor. Yes, our tormentor. Not really. He's great. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity for us to be all together doing this. This is just a great event for the entire community. My name is Kim Lee, and I'm going to be co-hosting show 3. I just want to let you guys know, for all of you people out in internet land who may not know who the heck I am or why I'm here, I'm going to give a really brief, maybe 2-minute intro. I've been in the CG industry for about, I'm now ballparking it rather than giving an exact year, 25 to 30 years. My previous life, if you could tell from the wall behind me, I was a guitar technician. I toured and did all that crazy rock and roll stuff. When I left the music industry, I went into print with my father, actually, and I learned layout and advertising on the print side. I discovered CG a little later on, and then that kind of led me into making a reel, and I got into commercial work in New York City. I did commercials, small spots, big spots, industrials, everything. And then throughout my career, moving on from there, I worked on set as a VFX soup. I've left digital for a while, and I went into fabrication with machines like CNC machines, things like that, making props and sets for TV shows and all the other side of visual effects, the physical side. I've acted as a trainer for Autodesk, a demo artist over the years with Autodesk, written books. I read, worked on the Inside 3ds Max 4 book, for those of you old enough to remember.
That was my first version.
Was it?
Max 4. Yes.
My
I started with Max
second
4.
one. My
Really?
second one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll never do that again. But it was a good experience. A lot of work for a very short amount of payoff time, because when Max 5 comes out, like, oh, why did I do all that, right? I've taught college, taught at Pratt, taught at SVA, and now I'm at Fuse Effects. I've been here at Fuse Effects, the New York office, for about 7 years, just coming up on 7 years now. My role there is a CG supervisor, and we work on mostly episodic stuff. So some of the stuff we've done recently, Good Doctor, Blacklist, The Flight Attendant on HBO, Terminal List on, I think that's Amazon Prime, DMZ, and Marvel shows like Luke Cage and Punisher and Iron Fist. So that's my world now. But again, I just wanted to give you guys a little background so you know who your hosts are. I want to thank Chaos for the opportunity to co-host with my longtime friend, coming up on 10 years, Bruno.
Almost,
Bruno up
yes.
in Montreal. So, yeah, Bruno, tell the nice people about yourself.
Yeah, I'll do that quickly. No, but so I have a background in product design, industrial design, and I quickly realized I was not super good at this. But I was kind of exposed to CGI when I was doing my bachelor degree, and I just fell in love with it. It was just the best thing ever, and I like to do images of product that doesn't exist yet. And so I kind of steer my career into 3D Viz. I work for a small agency in Montreal, bigger studios, manufacturing companies. So I did a lot of production, images, animation. But after 15 years and plus doing production, I decided to kind of move again, steer my career into software development. So I started working at Autodesk, and I was first involved in the product development of the game engine called Stingray. And after that, I was moved into the 3ds Max product development team, which I was super happy because I've used Max most of my career. And for some time, my team, we did texture baking workflow, and at some point I was responsible for anything related to rendering. I was involved into the development of Arnold for 3ds Max, and after a couple of years being at Autodesk and on the Max team, at the end I was kind of lead PM for 3ds Max. I felt I was up for a new challenge, so I decided recently to switch to Unity, where I'm a product manager as well. I'm mostly involved in interrupt between DCC and also the ecosystem of product at Unity. So I'm looking at open standard USD and also the productization of new and cool technology. So stay tuned. But I guess again, thanks for the Chaos team for having us. Third, it's our third year in a row.
Yeah.
The first year we were not together because I think Kim, you were on the New York show and we were
Right.
doing like a full Montreal one.
Right.
But still, Kim and I kind of we goes like a long way. But we're not the star of the show, so enough about
Why
ourselves.
not?
So today we have two fantastic speakers. So we'll start with Lydie. She's a 3D artist at Groupe Lacasse. So they design and manufacture office space furniture. Then we'll have Serge. He's the founder and the CEO of Digital Lantern. In French, we say Lanterne Digitale. It's a studio that specializes in design and production of 3D visuals for marketing and also entertainment. I've watched, a lot of what you guys are doing, Serge, and there's a bit of architecture, product design, medical viz. Uh, Super exciting. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys are cooking up. And finally, Kim, you want to introduce?
Yeah, and then our third speaker today is Sergey, and I'm lucky enough to have been working directly with him for the last about 5-6 years. He works with me at Fuse Effects. He is the tracking supervisor for the entire New York office. It's going to sound like I'm blowing smoke, but it's true. This guy is the one person who touches every show in the New York office. We don't touch every show in CG. Some shows are all comp, and there's a lot of comp stuff going on. He touches the most shots for one person in the entire studio. So my hat is always off to him. Anyway, he'll be talking about some interesting, slightly more technical stuff than our first two presenters will be, but some very interesting approaches to, when things don't go the way you want them to go.
Which never happened.
Yeah, which never happens. Yeah, right.
And we could have done half of that show in French, by the way. Lydie,
Right.
Serge, myself, so we have. So yeah, of course.
Okay,
Lydie, are you in Montreal? So we can turn this into a Montreal, Quebec City kind of terroir. We have people from New York as well, which is anyway. That's very interesting. So I guess we can kick things and start with the show. So Lydie, I think we've almost crossed paths couple of time in the past because I did some work for Lacasse Furniture in the past. But we're talking like 10 years ago in plus.
Okay, so you know Patricia, I think.
Exactly. So let's say hi to Patricia.
Yeah, she just retired last week.
Oh my God.
She's watching us right now.
Oh, so I didn't know that. But yeah, so I did that. I think I did like a full book on, it was furniture for schools and educational stuff. But again, that was a long time ago. So if you find the booklet in the office,
I know this one. It's a great one. It still looks good. Yeah.
So I know that you also attended some of our 3ds Max user group in the past, and I'm pretty sure I kind of bug you for user feedback in the past. So we're super happy to have you on the show. So I've been following you, for some time mostly on LinkedIn, and one thing that really sparks my kind of interest was all of your Easter eggs, funny images that you've created, either for holidays or event. I just love when people use CGI and something serious to make something a bit funny out of it. I have a lot of respect for that. You know, once one of my colleague, I'm not sure if he's watching, but Brent, he kind of redid the whole trailer of Top Gun, the recent Top Gun, with the lawnmower instead of the jet, and it was just beautiful. So enough about my stories. So Lydie, the virtual stage is yours. So
Okay.
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me tonight. I'm very happy to participate, and I think we can launch my video because I'm presenting myself a lot in it. So maybe we can start it right now.
Are we ready backstage?
Okay.
Just a second.
Yes.
And it's coming.
Okay.
Let's go.
First, I would like to say that I'm very happy to participate in 24 Hours of Chaos 2022, and thank you very much for having me on the panel for show 3. In the next few minutes, I will present you my work for Group Lacas. I'm really glad for the opportunity to share my experience as an in-house 3D artist in design and manufacturing. I will not explain how I do the renderings or the animations in Max or V-Ray because you can find those information everywhere now. Instead, I'll explain more what I do on a daily basis and what my job generally looks like. I'm part of the communications department and the only 3D person in the company. It's a little bit like being your own department embedded into another one. For someone who really doesn't like repetitive work and has everything 3D falls onto my lap, it allows me to switch between different tasks throughout the day or the week and always have fun. The 3 aspects of my role are as follows. First, we assist clients in closing their sales by rendering custom projects. On the other hand, there is the creation of the visual identity through photorealistic images and promotional animations for the website, brochures, or other platforms. Finally, growing our audience through creating diverse social media content. This last aspect I will be showing at the end. That's just the fun part. Those are images or videos created for occasions like Easter, May the 4th, April Fools, and other holidays. A little bit about my employer to give you some context before proceeding any further. Group Lacas is a North American leader in the design, manufacture, and service of a broad range of high-quality furniture solutions for all types of business and institutional environments. Headquartered in the province of Quebec, Canada, the company employs over 300 members. So, when I started 6 years ago, the biggest part of my day was to support sales. At first, I would say it was 70% of my role. Now it's down to 10% or 15% depending on the ongoing projects. Basically, the way it works is that clients need a custom configuration for their project. They have a DWG CAD file made and they send it to me to get a photorealistic rendering. The quality of the renderings makes a big difference for reps compared to other softwares that have automated generated images. I have done literally around hundreds of those in the past 6 years. Yes, that's really many. Let me continue by saying a few words about my own background. I started my 3D career on a late. I got a diploma in communications. I had many jobs before, worked in retail, in distribution, even in a bank. I have lived in 6 different cities, 2 countries, 2 continents. I studied 3D modeling for videos games 10 years ago, a time during which I learned game design, texturing, modeling, rendering amongst other things. And guess what? What did I like the least? Less rendering. Do I like it now? Yes, I love it. Never say never, right? My main role is creating the visual identity for the company by producing photorealistic images. As in the case of special projects for our clients, the process always begins with a CAD provided by our engineering team. Since I rarely get artistic instructions for them, I enjoy total creative freedom in designing the final product, choosing finishes and laying them out. In order to create visually appealing visuals, I need to research trends and find inspiration from existing offices. Magazines like Dwell, Design Milk, and Decoration and Pinterest are great sources of inspiration, and Office Snapshot is a very helpful resource for layouts helping me to create realistic environments. I try to fit trends while giving a timeless look to it so it does not age too quickly. The advantage though is I can update our pictures to keep the website up to date as we don't have any real photos on it. Inspiration can come from other sources. Traveling of course is a great one. I love to read, watch movies, working with my hands, drawing, everything that is good for the mind at least. Another thing is the challenge to tell a story and to make furniture alive, so to speak. And telling a story with only displaying furniture is not the easiest, but it's very important and surprisingly possible. It's often very tempting to make an appealing image, but forgetting that the collection needs to be the first thing the eye sees. The biggest mistake I made at the beginning was to try to replicate the look of the renderings of artists that I followed and wanted to be as good as they were. Replicate photos or reality is the best piece of advice I could give. Faking something that's already fake doesn't produce good results in my opinion. I also love to observe small details in real life wherever I am, at my home, at the restaurant, in the subway. 3 years ago, before you know what happened, offices were all about open spaces, where you could welcome as many workers as possible in any space. Easy and fast collaboration was the main goal of designers and reduced space rent for companies. And 2 years ago, as everyone knows, of course, everything changed. As a result, we have created a collection of home office products and visuals to help our customers work in healthy conditions. I mean, who hasn't missed his or her office chair during lockdown? I surely did, and I surely got one since. And the home office trend is blending into real office spaces. People want to feel comfortable and cozy at work too, and don't want impersonal workstations. A few months ago, we started sharing our return to work inspirations. So we created images blending all of our collections with a mix of privacy space, lounge areas, because let's be honest, we want to share with one another more than ever, and small meeting rooms. My creative process for the making of the images isn't always the same. I have always a few ideas stored in mind that I use when needed. Sometimes I have a demand for new content, so I work around the furniture to build a coherent environment. The workflow is always almost the same as follows. I import the CAD, build the decor around it, frame with a camera, light the scene and finish by fine-tuning the shaders. I work differently with the lighting than when I started. I used to mix dome light with sky portal and V-Ray sky, which you weren't supposed to do. Weirdly enough, the result was pretty good. I now almost only use a dome light. I used to post-process the renderings a lot in Photoshop, but I stopped that a while ago. I find it too time-consuming, and as I'm often asked to re-output the image in different formats or views, it's not worth it. So now, I try to have a good enough image before rendering. I just use Adobe Camera Raw to add a little bit of contrast or other adjustments. The recent changes in V-Ray frame buffer help a lot too. Light Mix is very helpful. It's probably my favorite addition these past years, even if, paradoxically, I often use only one light. But it definitely helps choosing between different dome lights or modes. Last but not least, as said in the beginning, I create some other content that is either 2D or 3D. It can be everything like GIFs, animations, Christmas postcards to Instagram stories. It's a good way to practice different stuff. I'm going to show you just a fun part made over the past few years for recurring events like holidays, May the 4th, Halloween, etc. Those are the occasion for a few laughs and for engaging our audience on a more casual note. We made them when time allows. It's really the kind of in-between projects. Little disclaimer, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so what I started to do with my first pictures was to discreetly incorporate Star Wars stuff. It could be a small R2 on a desk, a Vador head on a shelf, or a Bisping poster. I didn't tell anyone. It was like a joke with myself. But colleagues started to notice, and it became a thing with people asking if there were Star Wars Easter eggs in this or that image. And then I made special images for May the 4th. This one was the first. another year. I didn't have time to do it. I was very disappointed about it, so we made a quiz asking our followers if they could find the Star Wars item in our renderings. This year, with a new show soon to be released, we invited everyone to try one of our chairs and meditate on it as long as we would like. I think a circle is next. Halloween is a worthwhile occasion too. We started a series with a skeleton. In 2020, it was reading a journal while seated on one of our armchairs. In 2021, it's busy in the conference room with its coworkers. Feel free to suggest a new activity for 2022. What's great with those communications, it's that it creates a small momentum and they became a thing over time. Every year now, everyone waits for the next Halloween or May the 4th post. It allows to break a little from the usual corporate calm and to exchange directly with our audience as people message or email us about it. The most popular so far has been April's Fool. Last year, we launched a new chair, and about 1 month later we took the occasion to show a new version of it in this small video. It took around an hour from start to finish. It is intentionally flawed, so it doesn't look too real, but it makes you curious even though you suspect something is going on. This year the chair needed a friend, so it got the bling desk to go with. And that's it for me. It was a great pleasure to make this presentation. I hope you enjoyed it and thank you for listening.
Wow.
Who wants bling desk now?
Yep. I love the shining carpet that you had in one of your scenes. Really loved it.
Really something. I
Yeah.
can't believe you handle so much volume. It's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, it takes talent to do that. So
Yeah.
Thank
there
you.
you have it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Definitely. I think one of the best advice you kind of mentioned, like, looking up to photography or real life instead of, other people like CGI works. I think that's one of the best advice I've kind of learned also in my career. So,
Yes,
I think,
because you
no,
want
go
to
ahead.
copy the people you like, you're following, you're amazed by their work, and you want to do the same, and it's not working because they are doing something that is not real. So yeah.
Definitely. And I was wondering, how do you stay up to date with design trends? Because I think it's a huge part of your daily job. You kind of mentioned, traveling, movie, but I assume like you probably have like an enormous amount of Pinterest board with
Yes,
images and things like that.
you have to follow everything, every magazines, every influencer. Social media now is so helpful. It's like you said, traveling, going to a restaurant, to a cafe. Also, I think European designers are great inspiration because they are a little bit forward than North America. So really everywhere. And sometimes it's just a small thing you see somewhere and you say, wow, it could be nice in a rendering. And you have to be smart about it also, because sometimes I make images and you just have to change the accessories 2 or 3 years later, and the image is still up to date. If the environment is still minimalist or timeless.
Yeah.
It's a mix of both. You have to think about what the picture is going to look like 2 years later, and you don't want to be too strong in the trends too.
Yeah, it's true, because I feel that you cannot reuse the same banana plant leaf plants
No, you
forever,
can't.
the same carpet. So and I feel that you don't really follow kind of the classic kind of archviz and real estate trend, so it's kind of a bit different. And I felt also that the proposition and the design were a bit more edgy. The red wall and the red sofa, that's a bit more bold as a statement. It's not something that you see on, image of condo for real estate. So do you do like the whole artistic direction, or at
Yeah.
the end you have like an artistic director kind of approving
No, I
your
don't.
choices?
It's all on me. It's not how you said it. I don't follow what archivist usually does because I want the brand to stand out from competitors, and I want it to look a bit different, because I see amazing pictures everywhere in real estate or archives, but sometimes I think it sells more the artist than the product. And in the end, also I'm selling a product, and I want the pictures to have a signature. For example, 2 or 3 times a week, we receive commercial magazines about commercial furniture, and so we see what the competitors do. And I want our company to stand out, and I like the fact that when we see our picture, we know it's Group Lacasse.
Hmm.
And I'm not afraid to going bold because we want a wow effect, to stand out from the crowd.
Yeah. Was one of your proposition was too heavy, too bold, and it was kind of decline, aside the bling desk, for instance, or?
No, it was very encouraged by Patricia. She said, the first year it was April Fool. The same day she said, "Oh, we don't have anything to post." I said, "Okay, give me 1 or 2 hours. I think I have an idea." So it took me 10 seconds to have this idea. So I made the picture, and I was like on my own daily. I don't know how you say it in English. But no, it wasn't contrary. It's encouraged
So is
because
that
our
how like the Easter eggs kind of started at the beginning, or?
the Easter eggs. I started a little bit on my own. So the first year for May the 4th, I was like, I'm going to do an image. I won't tell anyone. And then the day I said, Patricia, I did something. It would be great because she knew I was a Star Wars fan. So it started like that, and sometimes I put small Star Wars stuff everywhere, and my colleague was, "Did you put something?" Or I say, "Yeah." I also put a lot of books that I love and read, so you can see a lot of sci-fi or Kafka in my images, for example.
So I'm curious about the other member in the of the group. Like, does any of you like do Easter eggs in your images? I know I was doing it a lot in the past. I once had to create it. I think it was like a locker room for hockey or something, and it was all of my colleagues' names on the in the locker with their date of birth as a number on the jersey. But I assume that Fuse FX, are you allowed to do something like that, to kind of put your kid's picture on the fridge or something like that?
Yeah, for sure, Bruno. I mean, we do it probably quite often, but the difference with ours is, like, for example, DMZ, the show that just came out. It came out a few months ago. It was a mini series. There were some scenes with digidouble soldiers in it, and we basically put all the faces of the compers in the Atlanta office and the VFX suit onto the soldiers themselves for something like that. But we do that stuff here and there. But it's the difference between what we're doing and what Lydie's doing, which kind of made me think of a question, was we're putting civilian photos, civilian media into entertainment media. These are just photos of people who have taken their pictures, and we know that they want them in there, right? Not that you can necessarily recognize them. That's why we get away with it. But in Lydie's case, you're taking Star Wars stuff and putting it in,
Entertainment, right?
yeah. So like, no your company's legal department has never bothered you with that and said, hey, you can't do that.
No, never.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, that's cool because in my field where I talk with a lot of different clients, they're all corporate, so
Yeah.
man, every asset we put in an image, everything has to be validated, approved, and so
cleared.
there's
Do we have clearance? Do we have clearance?
exactly. So it's kind of, and I admire all the leeway you have, and I envy you for that, because
I'm lucky, yeah.
we work on with different types of people. Engineers, they're very straightforward people. They're down to earth. They don't like. I love Star Wars. I got a bunch of these things behind me, but and I love the all sci-fi stuff. But when I come up with something like that, usually the engineers go talk to us and look at it. Well, what is that's not Star Wars, or is it?
All right.
So yeah, we tried. Never, and sometimes we use a texture and we didn't put a repetitive logo in there or something that we're gonna hide, and it doesn't show it the final image. We know it's there, but nobody knows, and that's it. And we have a good laugh about it. But aside from that, it's for us, it's not possible. So I envy your freedom.
Yeah, no, I'm lucky to have it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoy it very much.
Yeah, and it shows when there's a lot of freedom with an artist, that's where you get the best jobs. Otherwise, you're constrained too much. They're unique constraints. Time constraints will push you to be at your best during a short period of time. But when there are too many constraints, that becomes a trouble. A problem, I think. Yeah.
Which is kind of a next segue for there's a question from the audience, and I'm gonna just read it to you, Lydie. But like being the only 3D person, in the firm, how do you deal with all the responsibilities and the pressure of accountability for a project that comes in? Because you're kind of a one-woman army. I mean, there's probably challenges, pros and cons.
Of course, there are challenges, but for the pressure, you have to know what's your priority. So that's what helped me a lot. For example, I know projects for clients as a top priority. So when I often have like 10 projects at the same time. When I have projects for clients, I know I do that in the first time. And, I have to prioritize. So that's how I deal with it. But it's not so difficult over the years. It's becoming easier to manage.
And just more question from the audience. So I have a question. So having studied game design, what's your stance on the current state of gaming industry? Like both technically, like graphic, the game engine, RTX, all of that, like GPU rendering, and the and emotionally seen, like mostly like storytelling.
I think it's becoming very impressive. It's so different when I studied it 10 years ago. So I don't even know what's really happening inside those companies and what they're doing. But when I play a video game, I'm just it blows my mind how great it looks now, and I would like to see more behind the scenes sometimes. But I'm really impressed.
So what's your latest game you're playing?
Horizon 2.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
I love it. It's one of my favorite games ever. It's
Horizon's amazing.
yeah, it's visually it's really impressive. The storytelling is one of the best.
I
And
agree.
I love The Last of Us too. It was one I did before. So yeah, those kind of games are really my jam.
So I'm not a cat person, but I'm playing Stray, and it's just beautiful. I don't know. It's super like just casual, like I don't know. I just love it. So there's another one last question from the audience about storytelling. So do you have any tips for effective visual storytelling? So how do you go about creating the story of emotion that felt behind the images? And if I recall, like you had one image that was clearly in an office space, then you had the other one that was like more clearly like an home office. It's very subtle. It's just like maybe the window, the little plant, and
Yes,
the arch for the door, and I think it was kind of clear that those were two different kind of office space.
it's true. I think what I have in my mind when I create those images where I would like to work personally. and so I envision those spaces. So when I do a big environment, like a big open space or mixed spaces, I tell myself where I would like to work, what would feel good for me. So that's how I do my stuff. And for the home office, I tell myself what where I would like to work, how I would like my home office to look like.
Mhm.
I mean, I think it's how I do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Kim, any, Sergey, Serge, any question? I think, oh, we lost Kim. He's back.
Kim is good.
Oh, yeah.
Any last question for Lydie?
I have a question actually.
Yeah.
I notice, and I think that's commonly the case in a lot of furniture and things like that. Representing in 3D space, usually the problem is the repeatability of patterns and textures that really give away that it's not it's CG and everything like that. How do you deal with, because you cover so much different pieces in one image? How do you deal with making sure that your repeatability is not obvious, and because you can't have textures that go on for 16 gigabytes or something, right?
No, it's difficult, but
Mhm.
yeah, you have to have a big bank of textures. And the thing is, our finishes, we have only 24 finishes, so you have to mix it differently. The size, the colors. You mean
It's a
it's
challenge.
difficult.
But you get away with it. It looks really good.
Yeah, I know. But for example, you can't buy new plants every week. I can buy new plants or textures every other week, but you have to play on the shades, to you darken it, you lighten it. I mean, that's it.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Cheating.
Yeah,
Get away with
cheating.
everything.
Yeah, it's a big part of 3D work, I think. No.
Yeah,
No, it's
Absolutely.
true.
yeah,
So,
that it is.
Actually, I had a question, Bruno, for Lydie.
go ahead, go ahead.
So as the one woman army for type of this type of work, do you ever find for these pieces having to also do things like sim, like for water or vapor in your stills or non stills, or scanning for non product models? Do you ever have to go outside of the traditional modeling, the 3D workflow, and actually use things like scanning or
No,
simulation or anything like that?
no.
Okay.
No, it's really no.
Tourist.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, that was awesome. So thank you, Lydie.
Thank you.
That was a very. I think that it was very personal. So I think that was. I'm sure the audience really enjoyed that. I know I did. So thank you again for being part of this. It was
My
very
pleasure. Yeah.
yeah. Um. All right. So next, Serge, are you ready?
Yeah, I am. I am.
Good. So we next speaker will be Serge. As I've mentioned, is the founder and CEO of Digital Lantern in Quebec City. Um, Again, we've connected for a while, and again, I've been lurking your work, of the studio for some time. You kind of I feel that your studio work on the extremely large data set, like civil engineering, architecture, but also like the very micro, like medical visualization, which
Yeah,
I think is fascinating. I just love it.
yeah,
And
it's pretty cool. 3D animation or 3D technology can be used to showcase almost anything.
yeah,
When we talk about our clients and when they say they ask us, what can you represent, and we can represent the atom or the universe and everything in between. So whatever
wow.
pick you choose, and that's how it usually goes. But like Lydie, we did a short video and I'm presenting myself. So instead of repeating everything and then having the sense that everything's repeated, I'll let the video play for me. But I think that you have something else that you wanted to play before. I
No, I
think.
think it's going to be after. So
Okay.
we're
Okay.
good to go. And I have a background in industrial design, so looking at the work from the studio, I saw some super cool project that some of the stuff I would have loved to work on. So I'm happy that we're going to share that with the whole audience. So I think we're ready for Serge video. Are we ready backstage? I think so. Yep.
Here we go.
Digital Lantern, or as we say here in Quebec City, Antenne Digital. Our enterprise is based in Canada and has the mission to provide its client, innovators of the manufacturing and scientific field, with compelling imagery in 3D animation in order to help them develop their businesses. Simply put, we bring our client the technology of cinema and game industry so that they can promote their innovations. We create 3D imagery, 3D animation videos, and provide real-time presentation tools to our client. But more on that shortly. We've been doing this now for 20 years and have clients all around the world, in Canada, the US, in Europe, and Japan. So how did it start? Well, as you can imagine, it started with me. When I was younger, had I had my way, had I had more confidence, I would probably have pursued a career in the movie industry or visual effects. But being in Quebec City, didn't have a lot of resources at the time. There was no social media, no internet as we know it today. So resources were really scarce in the field. So I turned myself toward a field where I found myself to be, I thought I would be, where my talent would be more useful, which I was great in drawing, so I went into architecture. So a couple of years later, I finished my degree in architecture and started working as an apprentice in an architecture firm. 3 months later, though, I realized I didn't like my job. If I liked the creation and design processes, there was too many limitations for my taste, and I didn't feel fulfilled in the field. After a little bit of soul searching, let's say, I realized my earlier passions were still there, and I decided that it would be better to pursue those passions rather than anything else. Being in architecture, I was already working with 3D softwares, and I really like to work with 3D technologies. I was good and proficient with those tools, and they already were a part of the DNA of my design process. That part of the job where I could bring a project to life really spoke to me. Furthermore, being raised in the 80s, I was of course a big science fiction fan. And I had to develop a real passion for everything that was visually stunning. So when it came time to illustrate something, I had a lot of inspiration to go to. 3D animation was a perfect way to align my knowledge with my passions. After all, 3D animation has an incredible potential and can be used for so much more than just video games. It literally has no limits and does not suffer the constraint of reality. So for me, it became clear rather quickly that it would be the center of my career. So I returned to school and finished a specialization in 3D animation, and then created Lanterne Digital. At first, the company oriented its operation toward real estate developers of the region, the field I knew and was comfortable with. We worked hard, and slowly but steadily, as our work got recognized for the quality of the imagery we provided, we expanded to other fields. And soon, not only were we working in real estate, but in the furniture industry, marketing, in pharma, science, and technologies, as well as other fields. But when we got the chance to work in the tech industry and its many innovators, that's when our talent started to shine. When we could use all the potential of our trade, that's when we truly found our passion, our mission, our why, helping innovators promote their ideas. In 2013, the studio began to completely orient its service toward innovators of tech and industrial fields. And from then on, our team grew and soon accumulated under its belt more than 3,000 small and big projects. Our many collaborations with our innovating customers inspired us toward a solution-oriented mindset. And as we saw them grow, so did we. We owe a lot to our customers. Their drive inspired us, and it's with that drive, that mindset, that we got into the advent of COVID-19 with all its challenges. The sudden need for our customers to be able to present their product remotely was quickly felt. And this, not without a certain feeling of panic. For many, it was a considerable issue, and few of them were ready for this situation. Some envisioned incredibly complicated solutions, and others, lacking the necessary tools, saw only an impasse. While talking with a lot of our customers, hearing all the means they were ready to take, all the efforts that they were ready to put in, a realization came to us. There should have been a more simpler solution and a more accessible one, and not only for the big guys, but for the small one also. A solution that would not only solve the constraint of the pandemic, but which would remain relevant once it was over. This is how the idea of our project was born, the Lantern 3D Space. An online platform allowing our customers to be able to present all the advantages of their product, regardless of conditions, with maximum freedom. Being knowledgeable in 3D technologies, the development of this solution was rather quick. From dedicated servers, our customers can now present their innovation in real time, all their features, all their configurations, all their benefits, as a tool for sales or formation, in one-on-one meetings, during trade shows, or to the entire world, from anywhere to anywhere, with the customizable environment of their choice. As I said, we owe a lot to our customers. Their leadership in innovation pushed us to innovate. With this solution, we truly hope to help all kinds of innovators and help the expansion of knowledge all around the world. I hope you like this presentation. Thanks for listening. Have a good one.
Wow.
That is mind-blowing.
That's like epic.
So Serge, if you impress Sergey, which like a VFX like superstar, I mean, kudos.
I think you built so much with this presentation. The music and the passion in your voice and everything. I'm kind of, I don't know. It's like I want to see more now. I'm really just
Serge,
bored a little
I
bit.
think you were muted. Are you muted right now?
Yes, I am. Sorry.
Oh, he's back.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Well, it's it's been a like I said in during those times. At first we didn't have a lot of resources to get to know everything. So I was of course an architect for a while, and I was working with those real estate guys, and they had so many troubles selling their products. Their building and their project. And so that was a part that really sold me on the 3D, because I like to design in 3D. So I produced everything from scratch, and every design I was doing was always starting from scratch in 3D software. And then I got into 3D Max, and then when I got into V-Ray, and then so on and so forth. And so I got better, and I was like Lydie, like kind of a one-man army in the architecture shop in which I was working. But I really love that aspect of my job, and that's when I told myself, okay, I'm also like Lydie, a big fan of Star Wars. Actually, my parents told me, when you're younger, you wanted to become an engineer, and then we showed you Star Wars, and when you were 7, and then everything fell apart from that part. So I couldn't find anything I really liked, because I was interested in everything. I went into, in college, I studied science, everything, but I was aimless for a while, and I got into architecture because I had the ability to work with people from everywhere. But when I got into 3D, and then when we got the chance, like I said in the video, that to work with guys from innovations, engineers, and guys who were working with lasers, detection, doing real CGI, doing real sci-fi. I mean, that was great.
So it's funny how Star Wars is kind of guilty for creating generation of CG artists.
Guilty.
Yeah.
Guilty right there.
Yeah, when you read about how these guys started from scratch, they were working in their garage, and they were so young then, and now they're business owners there. These guys invent a lot of stuff, and it's so inspiring when you want to create something from scratch. And that's one of the things that drives me. I wasn't, in my head, I wasn't supposed to be an entrepreneur. I was just supposed to be a guy who would follow a big leader and like Maximus and Caesar. I'd be Maximus, and I would, the Caesar would say, "Hey, we go over there," and yeah, that's fine, we go there. Never found that guy, so I had to become kind of one.
Yeah,
My
it's you
team.
now. Wow.
So yeah, well, now it's you have to have leadership and try to make those young guys who've learned in the video game industries, and now they have to change and tweak a little bit how they work, so to get into the side of things that we do here. We developed our own ways to do stuff and try to always think out of the box. I know it sounds cheesy when we say that now,
Yeah.
thinking outside the box, but and we had a little discussion on that a little bit sooner. But now people didn't, they're pretty specific really soon in 3D. Now you get to expand those, those fields, those eyes, and make sure that oh, there's not only modeling, there's animation, there's rigging, there's lighting, there's rendering, and now the tools are so easy. Well, not so easy, but they're a lot easier than when I was learning 3D stuff in 1998, working with AutoCAD, which was like there was no OpenGL, so you can imagine, how it was back then.
Wireframe forever.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No OpenGL, right?
But one thing you mentioned at the beginning is you wanted to do like movie VFX.
Yep.
And and you mentioned that it was not really a thing in Quebec but now that there's kind of a big boom of VFX, in Montreal, but I guess also in Quebec. So do you have that FOMO like feeling of missing out moment now, or?
Sometimes I do, but again, when you have a client that calls you and he did his pitch with the presentation you prepared for him, and he tells you that now he can, now we have the finance to get 10 people a job and create job and go further and do something more. It's pretty cool. So we're always looking into the VFX field at some point. Again, we always feel that we're not good enough to do that. So it's kind of, we're heading toward that, using more and more complicated technologies, softwares for simulations, because the more we work with engineers and mechanical engineers and aerospace now, sometimes we have to recreate all the reality of how their technology works. So we get to learn a lot, and to me it's pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like something on the shelf you have in front. Oh yeah, one day we'll do that, but it's always a little bit further down the line, always.
Yeah.
So we're not closing the doors on that, of course, but we get to help a lot of people right now, and it's pretty cool. That's nice, and it's something that we love to do.
So if you could go back, would you do it again?
Yeah, of course I would change some little thing. I would say to some people that screw themselves for a while. I wouldn't go there. No, it's just I would, but mainly I have no regrets on that, because you look at the kind of parkour you did as an entrepreneur, and you learned so much along the way. You made so many mistakes. But those mistakes, those failings, those failures, they just build your future success, and that's how you get to look at those things. So yeah, and it's pretty cool. I get to go to the cinema and be enjoying myself and not thinking, oh, I did that thing. I know exactly how it was in the first shot. So because I got friends who work in the field, and sometimes they say, well, yeah, I worked on this, or Game of Thrones, and I know how they did that, and I'm just tired of looking at dragons now. So yeah, okay, so I get to look at Game of Thrones and enjoy the show
and still be amazed.
Yeah.
So, but are you still involved in production? Like,
I am.
Yeah.
I can't. I'm not able to not
Okay.
go tweak something. And it's I wouldn't say that I'm hands-on on every project, but I'm gonna I'm gonna do the first draft sometimes. I'm gonna do the first blocking, some things like that. I'm gonna show my guys the inspiration that I have. Usually we go through movies. We look at movies. Are they done? Oh, these guys. Let's say we have a team of expert that works with LiDAR detection, and so they work with light. So our concept was to work and to recreate kinds of environment like if you were in the movie Tron. So you see all those elements, and those elements are lights now. So that's how the detection works, and those concepts work well, and you get to understand the technology behind it, and it looks really cool. So it gets to be a kind of a signature branding that the company now has, that they have a particular feel and look that's pretty cool. So yeah, I'm gonna I'm gonna give my input on a lot of projects that we go through. Like I said, we have more than, well, it's 3,500 and something realization in the last 20 years. So there's a lot of projects that we worked on, and there's a lot of knowledge that comes with that, which I have to make sure that goes through to all the guys I work with, my colleagues here.
And I liked how you were telling the story of both your career and the studio, and clearly the quality was increasing and the scope of the project were kind of growing as well. So I guess you kind of added new skill set to your team, offering new services like motion graphics. So what's the size of the studio now?
We are 12 people right now.
Oh.
So it's it's a micro enterprise. It's a lot. We're a small shop, and we of course we want to expand a little bit more, and we have those those new services that we offer in real time, which now now the quality of image allows to go in real time, which wasn't the case not so long ago. So, and we never compromise on the image quality. If we have a client, whatever the size, we got people in their garage that are working on, inventions, and this guy is alone and he needs help. And we got those big companies. Like I said, we work with teams. We work with Volvo. We work with little guys. We have a bunch of different the size of companies that we work with, but we never compromise on that. So if someone comes to us and says, "Hey, we have a limited time, and we know we won't make it, or that the time won't allow to do our job correctly," we'll say no. That's how it goes.
And I saw that you were kind of offering kind of a new Web 3D kind of review showcase. So
exactly.
So was that coming from like the whole e-com kind of request? Was that coming from customers, or it's something that you guys decided to kind of let's jump into that?
We have a, well, mainly it's COVID's fault. We always knew we wanted to go, and offer real time spaces to our clients, but they work they work in a field where when you sell a product, it has to look good. So sometimes video game technology in real time won't cut it in terms of visuals. You got to be and Lydie will be probably will agree on that. If your product has to look really good, really realistic, you got to get the product right. But now the new technologies that are in, with RTX and you can get to, let's say, I'd say 90%, photo real quality, and maybe more than that if you put the time in to do that. But the clients, during COVID, they couldn't showcase their product. We work with Novabus. Novabus sells buses to their clients, so usually their client has to, visit the bus and do the configuration. So we created a real-time configurator for them, and from then on, the idea grew on our end, and we produced a 3D lantern space, which is a real-time space in which you can input the products that we get from our clients. So we treat them. We go through a process of optimizing the 3D model to make sure that it's game ready, and then we create all the features. We recreate all the features that are required, and our client can, through a Zoom meeting or on one-on-one during a trade show, they can showcase their product. That's what, yesterday and before that, we were at Aero Montreal, which is a aeronautic trade show, and we were showcasing the product, and it was pretty interesting.
I'll say I can imagine. Yeah. And that's a question from the audience. Like, what technology did you guys use for to set up the web virtual presentation. So maybe you don't want to disclose your secret
there
sauce.
there are some details I want to say, but I can tell you that we work with Epic Games, and that should be enough for people. So yeah, but we have different things, that we create with our programmers and so on. So it's a kind of a concerted effort. I'll say it like that. Yeah.
Kim, I'm gonna throw it at you. Any question for Serge, or maybe Lydie, if you have a question for
I
Serge?
actually did. So Serge, what in recent projects, what's the most out of the normal, or the newest thing that you guys had to add to your toolkit as far as techniques or skill set? What was the most challenging? Like, oh, this is, because a lot of projects can be pretty standard as far as, okay, we got to get a model from the client, we do this, we do that.
Yeah.
What was in recent times, what was the most challenging new thing you had to get into?
I'd say that we're heading through the pharma industry, so there's a lot of doing hard surfaces modeling is one thing. Going in the biology stuff is another thing. When you have to represent blood cells, transformations, and mutations and stuff like that. Those things are a little bit out of I wouldn't say that we're not good with it, but it's a little bit more challenging when you do organic stuff rather than industrial stuff, let's say. So I'd say fluid simulation, we all do that. We recreated a lot of special effects that we need for that. Of course, lasers are really cool to do when you're in the industry, with sensors and so on and so forth. But I'd say that the part where we have to be realistic, the uncanny valley. So when when you go there, that's where there's the you push on the technology and your resources, but those resources and technology pushes back. So you have to, and people can be really picky. They go see and go and look at the movie Avatar. It costs like something like $1 billion to do, and they expect you to do that for $15,000. So it's not the same deal here. So you get to get the expectations of your clients straight.
I was actually going to bring that up when you mentioned at the beginning of your talk. You said, well, we can do everything from a molecule to the universe.
Yeah.
And I was thinking in my head, depending on your wallet.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the detail we kind of leave off. But
usually, I got
that
once. A customer told me, well, we can send someone on the moon, so you can do that. I was like, yeah.
And people think that it's so easy, press enter and that's it, start your render. It's the computer that's working. But no, it's a lot more complicated than that.
Right.
When I have to explain it to let's say a client, and they say, well, those images are beautiful, our product is beautiful, it's going to be easy for you to do that. But I'd say, yeah, you can find a good competitor, someone who's really good with his hands, or is going to sculpt you something, but he might have the best, tool in his shed. If he's not a good artist, you're not going to get great results, and that's what you need. And so that needs talent, which requires money, which requires time, and it's a deal we have. It's sometimes the things we have to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a silly old phrase. Doesn't the computer do it all? It's like saying to a carpenter, doesn't the saw do it all?
Exactly. Exactly.
And I'm sure, Lydie, you heard that a lot, right? Being like
so much. Not long ago, I had a client tell me, I think it can be done in 5 minutes. So sometimes no, it doesn't work like that. But at some point, I think you have to learn to say no. It's you have this budget, you have this time. I mean, I can do,
Yeah.
And setting boundaries, right?
Yeah, and that perspective, I'm just a human. We have a team. People, I mean, they have to realize what you can do.
And sometimes you can do a project of a certain scope, and it's gonna go really well because you're inspired by that project, and it's gonna go like this, like you said, Lydie. You have this idea in your head. You talk to the client, you have this idea in your head. Oh, I know how I'm gonna do this, and it's going to take a day, maybe something like that, and you'll come up with a first blocking and something that looks already really great. And sometimes it's not that way at all. Sometimes it's
It's
just, oh,
true.
you get to, oh my god, I'm going to do this. And I'm sure the guys in VFX are the same way. You're going to have the director who's going to have a certain vision, doesn't necessarily says his vision the right way or in a way that's really, communication is key, and leadership. It's the same thing with innovation. In innovation, there won't be any innovation if there's no collaboration, which necessarily means communication and good communications with people. So you have an idea, you want to make sure that people have the right one. Sometimes there's discrepancies there between the people. So I think it's one, I'd say in our field, it's one of the biggest challenge sometimes. We have those clients who think themselves as directors. That never goes well. But then again, we try to help them. That's our goal here. We're here to help. So
yeah,
it's true.
Yeah, you just have to make them think that they came up with a good idea.
Yeah.
Just like kids, right?
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, that's the problem. That whole thing about our industry. It's like the biggest problem when I use like analogies like, well, no, you can't change this now. You were supposed to change this 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
We passed that stage. That's like saying, no, I think the counter shouldn't be granite. My new kitchen I should have had a quartz countertop. Can you just swap it out? And like, no, we can't. You needed to plan this before. Our industry suffers from the fact that we don't have, traditionally speaking, materials.
Yep.
It's true.
I mean, we do, but we don't,
And when they hear that, oh, it goes fast, now it's computing, it's faster than it was. So we're gonna short your delivery time.
We
Right.
just throw more stuff at it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And usually, the more power you have, it's like your shed. The more space you have, the more stuff you put in there, the more.
I know.
The more, yeah, it's it's like that. And even sometimes I myself, I'm thinking about the project, and I'm going, we have time now. The engine now is really great, and we can do it faster. And I always think about the best, the best time we had doing something, and it was great. And you don't see all the steps, and my team has to say, hey, Serge, calm down a little. You're enjoying this too much. It's I know you like the challenge, but we got to sleep. We have a weekend coming. We have other stuff going on, and so I have to hold a little bit myself back. But yeah,
you're enjoying yourself into their all-nighters, right?
Yeah, not so much. Not so much, I'd say. Now I like it when things run smoothly, and like I said, communication is key here. You want to have good leadership. You want to you don't want to put your people through so much stress that they can't produce, and they're artists, so they need time. They're not going to necessarily find the perfect idea while they're at work. They're going to do something else. They're going to look at something and say, hey, this thing is the way to do that other project, or things like that. And you know how it is. It's like that for you guys, I'm sure.
Right. I actually had another question for you, for especially for the size shop you are, Serge. Do you find the need, because I'm assuming, since you had kind of shown us before a little bit of your office, I'm assuming that right now you guys are all back in the office, your whole team? Is that
well, we're in hybrid mode.
Hybrid mode, okay.
Yeah, exactly. So we devised a way that nothing leaves the office, of course, because we have a collection of NDAs here, so we can't. Yes, so right. And we have to respect that. But the guys can work remotely, accessing the servers, but nothing goes through a site that they're streaming their own screen in their screen.
Right.
So that's how they work.
Because of this hybridness, and this is kind of something we're going to maybe touch on in the roundtable, so we'll talk more in depth there. But since you are hybrid, you have one component is a remote component. Do you find that, or have you had the need yet to look at the larger pool of talent that allows you access to, potentially?
it's a potential, sure, and we're looking at it as we speak right now. We got, we're looking for people, so it's
I see.
well, like I'm sure you all do,
Right.
but it's it's the name of the game now. Even our clients, everyone is looking for HR department or have full or they have their table full of jobs, so it's fine. But yeah, it's a way to do that. I'd say that it's kind of for us, for an enterprise like ours. Sometimes you try to get the people that are like we did a certain comparison of you have 3D people who work, let's say, in game industry, and they're really in big shops, so they're very specialized. And our need is more toward generalists. So we need people who can handle a project and can get their talent to any part of the pipeline. So they have to be good in modeling, they have to be good in texturing, they have to be good in all the facets of the job, animation, rigging, lighting, and so on and so forth. So it's a kind of we're pretty picky because we need those types of people who are going to think in terms of solutions and not necessarily in terms of, oh, I do modeling, so I'm going to do modeling. If I work for you, I'm just going to do this, and I'm not going to even touch anything else. That won't fit for us. So yeah, we have those specifics that we're looking into. And of course, the fact that now we have kind of the world as a pool in terms of talent, that's what we're studying right now, and we're finding a lot of talent, and it's pretty cool to see what we can see from the world.
So of the people that you have on staff right now,
yep,
you've already established that for the most part they're all generalists.
Yep.
How diverse are there of the 12 people or 11 people, if I don't know if you were counting yourself? How diverse are their artistic backgrounds?
Or
are they all kind of they all kind of came from the same? These guys came from architecture, and these guys came from engineering, and they
they're not really that diverse in terms of where they come from, in terms of school. We're in Quebec City, of course, and before COVID, we didn't have the kind of mindset that to go, well, let's go I don't know, in Europe, maybe we're gonna find someone who can work remotely. I'm pretty standard guy, and I like to see my people. I started a company so that I could work with people, so I like to see people. So I'll admit that I wasn't the first that was enjoying remote work, but now I'm kind of sold on it. It took me a while, but now it is. So my guys in the sales teams will tell you, yeah, we had a lot of convincing to do. Serge is hard at it a little bit, but yeah,
he's old school.
Yeah. So right now, I wouldn't say that our team is an international one. Of course, it's not. We're very local.
I meant more an artistic background, like, we've got one guy who was a sculptor, and he got into 3D.
I was getting to that. The best 3D
Sorry.
artists I've met, they all have atypical. How do you say that in English?
Atypical.
Atypical. Yeah. They have those different background. What the best animator I've met was a musician. So
wow.
He had the timing. He wasn't able to model for anything. And he didn't want to touch anything, but he could take a sphere and make you cry with it, just giving it emotions.
Wow.
So and so these guys, they're great. Of course, now he's not with us anymore. He's working elsewhere, but because of course when we do cars and so on, it's not like you can make a car cry. If you want to do that, it's not going to be helpful for us. But there's those types of guys that you meet, and they're pretty rare. We don't get enough of that, and the schools tend to specialize people too quickly to my taste. I meet 20-year-olds and really 20-year-olds. I'm not talking about 21, 22, 23. I'm talking about the 20, and they're already telling me, oh, I just want to do modeling. Oh, really? You just want to do 3D modeling, and you don't want to touch rigging, you don't want to touch texture, you don't want to touch lighting, the complete process. and they say, oh no, my teacher told me that no, I was good there, so I should stay there. And that's a mistake, I think. You get to learn, because the more specific you'll be, at some point things will get a lot easier to do in a particular thing that you have to do in 3D. And probably if you're good at that specific thing that's now automated somehow, something like that, you won't have the foothold you need.
That's like someone telling someone, don't try that food, you're not gonna like it.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you try it yourself, how are you gonna know?
You're really good with comparison. It's nice. I love your metaphors. They're great. I'm gonna steal some of them with my team.
But so Serge, now that you're going into like real-time graphic and things like that, often you'll need to get people coming from the game industry, and is it difficult to get those new talent? Because I felt, something that I heard a lot from customers and people in the industry, that most of the time those people, they want to work on the next AAA game, and working on kind of architectural viz is like, it's not my thing.
Yeah, but there are some who will and will. Last week I was in a school here. They were they're showcasing their demos, and you can already see the kind of profile of the guys you have. You kind of detect that after 20 years of doing this. You say, okay, this guy is interested in the game industry. So, of course, it adds to our difficulty, and looking internationally, like we spoke a little while ago, it's of course that's where we're going. We're gonna go. We'll have to do that as the company still needs to expand. But there's a lot of guys also coming from the game industry that are tired to do the same thing over and over again, because again, it's very specialized at some point. So they'll be interested to do some things differently. We meet some of them. We see them. So it's just a question of opportunity meeting chance somehow, something like that. So I'm confident that it's and our team. I'll go back to what I was starting to say before I had this other idea. But most of my guys, they're pretty new to the job. We get to get newbies, but when I get them and I talk to them about, let's say, Star Wars, and I tell them about how those guys in 6 months has to deliver a movie which there was no technology to do the VFX back then, and in 6 months they found a way. I don't know if you read the book and if you saw the story of those things, but it's pretty inspiring. And for those guys, it's challenging. They can come up with new ways to do stuff. They don't know the limitation. Not knowing the limitation, they're going to push through some things that are not supposed to work, and they work. Suddenly they make it work. So it's pretty great. We have 2 of those guys here, and they're great for that.
Yeah, they had to build the car so they could run the race.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, sometimes when you have a milestone, you get really, like a deadline, you get really creative.
Yeah, it's challenges. They're gonna you show what you're made of when when everything is easier. You show it when you're challenged, and that's when the talent shines usually.
It's true.
Yeah, Serge, thank you so much. That was very inspiring. I'm sure the audience really enjoyed that, and I guess we can move forward with our next speakers. So Sergey.
Actually, I think we.
Oh no, it's true. We need to go through some official announcement, right?
Oh
yes.
Oh,
interesting.
Short commercial break.
Right.
Don't change that channel.
No, please stay online.
Tell you about the competitions running during each show. Everyone watching has the chance to win some great prizes in our raffle. You can win 1-year software licenses for Chaos V-Ray or Corona and Sinai's All Access just by registering. The registration form can be found on the official event website. The winner will be chosen randomly and will announce their name at the end of each show. Also, if you want to win some cool Chaos swag, please share your favourite show moment, presentation or speaker on the official Facebook event page, Instagram or Twitter with hashtag 24HOC. Again, the winner will be chosen randomly and announced at the end of the show. For all you enthusiasts who stay up for 24 hours, we've prepared a special quiz at the end of show 12. You'll have the chance to win a 24 Hours of Chaos trophy, a branded hoodie, an annual Chaos V-Ray solo license, plus an annual Sinai All Access license. During show 12, we'll invite all viewers to fill out a quiz with one question per show. The first 3 people who respond with the most correct answers will become our 24 Hours of Chaos 2022 champions. I hope you're excited to win some great prizes. Good luck to everyone who enters and enjoy the show.
And we're back.
So that's the AI announcement?
No, that's not the
Okay.
AI. She comes up when we go to the backstage after.
Because, when I learned about that, I was like, oh my God, like 24 Hours of Chaos 2025 will be out of job, Kim. It's going to be all AI.
That's fine.
Just going to sit and watch that show. Going to get out of job.
I highly doubt that they'll be able to simulate all the random banter.
All of us.
Yeah. So that's like when the actors were all worried that motion capture was going to put them out of business.
It's true.
Like, all right.
They put them in a suit now.
Yeah, right. And now they don't have to get in costumes and makeup. Now they love it, right? So I'm going to introduce our third and last speaker for the show number 3. It is a great honor of mine because me and this gentleman, Sergey, have a long history, known each other for a while. He's a longtime Max artist. That's how I met him. He's also a fellow maker in electronics and just making things. So we have a very cohesive mindset as coworkers. And like I may have mentioned before, I don't know if I did, but basically every show that the Fuse Effects New York office works on, he is the only person in the studio who will touch every show that comes through our doors, even if there's no CG needed for it. Comp will need tracking or something. And he's been just the stuff that he's been doing the last bunch of years in his capacity as the tracking supervisor at Fuse Effects has been a huge aid for me personally and the animation guys when we have to match move something. A lot of times it could be handled he does most of the work for us, which I have to admit, which is great. And there's a lot of tight integration with what I do with him because I do a lot of the blended camera work whenever we need blended cameras from real camera rigs that the client may want one seamless camera. And the areas that this guy covers in his work ranges from everything from camera tracking, rigid object tracking, deforming object tracking, asset scanning, and location and environment scanning. So basically anything that integrates or bridges the physical world and our digital world, he's involved with. So it's my distinct honor to present our third presenter. Sergey.
Who is this magical guy?
Right.
I want to see him. Is he in
Kim.
the backstage?
Right there.
I love it.
You owe me
Thank you, Kim.
$20
Appreciate it. That's really nice of you to say. And let's just roll the video if we can, because that was like an intro to end all intros. My God.
Yeah, we can roll it.
So we can start with part A.
Yeah, let's start.
My name is Sergey, tracking supervisor at Fuse Effects, and I wanted to give you a glimpse of the world of tracking and hopefully show you that tracking isn't just tedious and stressful discipline. It certainly is that, but it can also be creative, and if you're into problem solving, it has that in spades. Before we get started, I wanted to apologize for my voice. I've recently lost it, but I will do my best to enunciate my terrible English. So I recently had an opportunity to work for an Amazon show called The Terminal List, and I wanted to show you how one of the shots was put together for it. So this particular shot was important for the storyline, and if you haven't seen the show, I won't give away any spoilers, but it's safe to say that since it was one of the last shots of the establishing episode, it carried some weight for the future episodes and needed to be as seamless and engaging as possible. So in the shot, the lead character played by Chris Pratt is arriving at his house, and that portion of the shot was shot on a physical location. And the scene action is that he gets out of the car, runs inside of the house, and that portion was shot on a soundstage. So the tracking and layout department was challenged with making that residual stitch as seamless as possible. And while we often do multi-camera stitches, the challenge for this particular shot was that the street footage, part A, and the soundstage footage, part B, that dressing was very different from each other. And on top of that, there was no scene survey made, and we were kind of flying blind. I had to come up with a way to track the part A camera and have that scene match real world scale and create geometry for it. So usually tracking relies on LiDAR scanning to gather scene data and get textures with the environment as well as measurements, etc. And we use that data to cross-reference our tracking points and establish locations. But I think a well-rounded tracker is someone who can solve a shot without relying on LiDAR. It's very convenient and it's great when you can get it, but when you're given a shot without LiDAR or survey data or lens information, you will need to think fast because the production train does not stop. And this was the case here. We had no info besides the shoot location. So I did what any internet stalker would do. I hit Google Maps and tried to get the sense of the environment from the street view. Well, I was surprised to see that the street view actually had the hero house blurred out. And I'm guessing it's because it's a shoot location. Now, Google Earth has come a long way, and its online-based application called Google Earth Studio has a few tricks up its sleeve, and I was able to utilize a few of those for my needs. It seems to have been designed by people who actually know a thing or two about UI design and common sense animation tools. Anyway, after using those tools and animating a survey shot to assist me in creating an environment for our Part A shot, I rendered out the animation as if I was flying a drone on set. Once I had my drone-like survey shot rendered out of Google Earth Studio, I was able to use the photogrammetry software to first generate a point cloud based on those sequences, and then a denser cloud based on the tie points from the point cloud previously generated, and finally a fully textured model. Next step in the process is to go back to Google Maps and try to get a measurement from location. That measurement we can use to scale the generated environment geometry. And that's done simply in a 3D package of your choice. Mine happens to be 3ds Max for Life, and it just takes one scaled reference object and a few adjustments to the pivot point, and you will have properly scaled scene geo. Of course, it also takes a naked guy who is ready to hug the world as your human scaler. Maybe the technical term is 6-foot man. Much like a stack of apple boxes on set, this is our standard unit of measure in tracking land, at least in mine, as weird as that sounds. And when we're happy with the result, we export the geo out to tracking application, where the rest of the magic happens. It's time to actually load in your newly minted RefGeo into tracking application. Add the trackers to the duration of the shot. I like to make sure that the 2D tracking points that I'm adding to the plate are also available to identify in my RefGeo. It's a bit of a tedious process. I like to be confident in my trackers, so I skip the boring part for you. However, it's very important to pay attention to the point validity and footage noise, etc. Okay. The algorithms for solving or triangulated camera are pretty much the same across all applications, whether you're in 3D or synthesized. As in this case, the camera solution is only as good as your trackers. Using this method, we try to take out some unknowns from the equation and provide geospatially correct reference that will help the software determine the lens and the movement of the camera. I have overlaid the textured RefGeo at 50% opacity to the plate, like a 50-50 mix. And it looks pretty down close, provided that we started with nothing. After the solve, I will track the interior camera and ultimately marry them into one stitch camera that will be used by CG and compositors. And by giving them our RefGeo, they're free to add effects, color corrections, as well as paint, roto mask, any glitches between plates. I will leave you with a final shot, and hopefully the stitch is not too obvious, okay? Well, this place, I just want to mention that if there's anyone out there thinking about getting into tracking, to really consider what you're getting yourself into. I'm kidding. I think a good tracker considers the past and the future, trying to work out the issues of the past, like getting the VFX soups to gather more data on set or add tracking points, etc. But also the future. How is the resulting camera going to be used? What geo or points should I give to the artist downstream that will help them? I think it's important to try other disciplines before ending up in tracking, since you will have a better understanding of what production needs. And after all, no shot exists and no story can be told without a camera. It is a tracker's responsibility to bring the work that people did on set to post, and if the job is done right, no one will ever know.
Cool.
Right.
Hey, Sergey, so
yes, sir.
Before we show the second part of the presentation, just because it was maybe not a little clear.
Yeah, I'm listening to it now. My voice was really bad, guys. I'm very sorry.
That's fine. You were sick. You were sick.
I was sick, yes.
So, the portion of the video where you went to Google Maps and you saw the house all blurred out, could you just say that again? What would happen there? You thought it was.
So sometimes these shoot locations that are constantly used in different shows, the owners or whoever is responsible, like they basically petition Google to blur out the front of the house, But luckily enough, that tool that I was using, the Google Earth Studio, it's not really based on Street View data, so they were able to provide the actual extruded geometry, that I was able to capture into a 3D model, and then use that to cross-reference the plate and put the trackers in the right locations to then basically have a real geo for that.
So so you were showing that Google Studio is basically the VIP backdoor to the.
Kind of, yes, and it's interesting.
Right.
It's interesting because it's a fairly new tool from what I understand, and you kind of have to request access. It's not.
It's not general knowledge.
It's great,
cool.
right?
It's great.
Yeah,
it's great.
But what was really interesting is that I was kind of skeptical about the quality of those of getting that geo out of it, by using photogrammetry. But if you actually think about it, it's a completely computer generated environment. There's no motion blur, there's no lens distortion, there's nothing. It's just images sequenced, one after another. So it's actually grabbing those. The photogrammetry software is easily can cross-reference, the images in the sequence and then generate geo that looks and actually is exactly the size that it is in Google Earth. So that's like skipping a step, But I think with this presentation, the whole point was kind of, in a perfect world, and well, of course we all live in a perfect world, you always get the LiDAR, and you always get the perfect measurements, and the VFX soup puts the tracking markers with the X's everywhere, and they light the green perfectly and everything. But that's not the case. Sometimes you just end up with a shot that it somehow has to get done, and they give it to you and you go, oh my God, I gotta think outside the box a little bit. So I think it's it's an interesting thing.
Which is a great segue to the second part of your presentation. The second
let's play that.
Where we for a vastly different reason, you did not have access to data that you would want to have, right? So we can roll the second video.
Just question.
Oh, sure.
So I assume that you guys will use like super scientific measurement tools, but at the end it's just a box and you just scale it, really, just like all of us would be doing.
There's not too much magic behind this curtain. I'll tell you that. But I mean, it's yes and no. It's case by case. But sometimes when you're just left with a box, you're gonna have to scale that box. So,
you give me so much hope. So much hope right now.
Absolutely. No, listen, come over. We're ready for you.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to dip into this, no problem.
This next tracking world adventure I'd like to take you on is a little sensitive. Because the show is still in production, I will not be using any footage, but rather a sample of a similar footage that represents the problem I had to solve. Tracking and layout departments often are tasked with creating static lock-off or still camera for shots. And usually it's a fairly simple process that involves a decent amount of guesstimating and recognizing parallel and perpendicular lines in the plate. marking the dominant perspective, then feeding those lines into tracking software and getting back the camera with the lens matching the perspective provided. And this shot was no different. It's off an FBI building in Washington, D.C., and it seemed straightforward. However, things didn't feel quite right with it, so I went to the trusted Google Earth to see what the problem could be. As it turns out, the facade of the building is not perpendicular or parallel to the rest of the structure, as it's following a slanted street. That discovery means that I cannot rely on all of the lines of the building that are visible and have to pick the back of the structure to place my perspective lines on. Not ideal, as those lines are abstracted, and I'm also noticing a slight slope on the screen right, meaning I cannot use the street as perspective lines, as it's not level with the roof. To make things easier, I decided to look around for other reference footage of the building and also hoping to find a 3D model of it that I could use to estimate my camera position from. I thought I was on easy street once I found a Google warehouse model of the building, and it looked like it was modeled from the map view, meaning I could rely on it, and the proportions could make quick work of estimating the camera. However, after a few head scratches and trying to use the model to estimate my camera, I realized that it just wasn't accurate enough, and I would need to generate my own. So Google Earth to the rescue, right? Well, as it turns out, Washington, D.C. is a pretty protected place for obvious reasons, and it's even protected digitally. Going to Google Earth, you might be surprised, as I was, to find out that there are no 3D buildings within a certain designated area, and now I'm truly stumped. And then it occurred to me that maybe I can find stock footage, or maybe a film would have that FBI building in one of its shots. And with any luck, it might be a long, clear, and have enough parallax that it will be able to scavenge survey shot from it. But alas, looking through all of the shots of National Treasure revealed only that Nick Cage has earned the right to be considered one. And the airspace above DC is just as tight as his performance in Raising Arizona. So no clear shots of the building that I can use. So back to Google Earth I went, and after walking the streets of DC using Google Street View, I realized that I can maybe screen grab a series of street images and run through the photogrammetry and get my survey of rep geo that way. My celebration was short-lived once I realized that a lot of those Google Street View images are taken at different times throughout the years, and the lighting changes enough between the sections to eliminate a possibility of a clear geometry generation using photogrammetry, sadly. I was almost at my wit's end, and only the fact that I had some partial solves come out from my screen grabs that made me look at Bing Maps. That's right, Bing Maps, who knew? And as it turns out, they have a much smoother method of grabbing Street View data, and I ended up gathering enough screen grabs to formulate an actual survey shot that I was able to track. And one last piece of the puzzle remained. My solution error was low enough that the camera was moving smoothly in 3D space. However, the angle of travel was way too steep. And that's when I realized I had no way of knowing what the lens could be calculated from. My screen grabs, made of a spherical rig on top of a Microsoft Bing map car, that puzzle was only solved once I measured and constrained distances between my surveyed trackers, and then it was a matter of dialing in the lens value, resolving and checking until the perpendicular lines of the building in the real life were matching the constrained lines in my tracking application. The result, survey shot, made very quick work of aligning the static lock-off shot that I started off in the beginning. I just needed to tell the application about common features, and voila, I have properly scaled scene with perfectly aligned camera and very good estimate of the lens. To test out my work, I modeled an FBI building in 3ds Max using camera view, and all of the faces matched. Well, that's it for me. Thanks for watching. Hope this wasn't too boring. And I know I was speaking fast. I was really trying to cram as much as I could into this presentation. Thanks, everybody.
And it certainly was not too boring, at least not for me.
Okay.
Not for me either. It's
Everyone
really awesome.
learned about Bing Map. It's a thing.
Yeah, I love that. That's the best line. Bing Maps. Who knew?
I feel like I'm doing commercials here for Bill Gates. You know,
Yeah.
I don't think he needs any more involvement.
So I guess we can do a quick Q&A with Sergey. I know that Bruno has been chomping at the bit to ask some questions. So we're going to just let you go.
I just one. So all of us are really into doing like, photorealistic rendering and crazy, images. So how does one move from this to become kind of an IT specialize into like LiDAR scanning? Do you get your creative fix out of it? Is it still something that, is it enough or?
Yeah. That's a great question. And what's really strange is that I don't think you should approach tracking as, like this is what I'm going to be doing from the start. Tracking is my, perfect solution for my life and everything like that. It's something that you arrive at, after you've done different disciplines. So what was interesting in my case is that I went to, art school for painting, of all things, and my first foray into 3D modeling or anything to do with that was actually my uncle taking me to his the institution he was working on for a space program, and playing with AutoCAD, or like 1.1 or 0.1 or something like that. And it's something that like planted that seed that later I was able to get into the commercial world and do all sorts of things in rigging, lighting, not successfully lighting. I'm not a greatest lighter, but being able to touch all these different disciplines that you kind of chisel away at something that gives you that fulfillment. And after that, commercial world was where I had to wear many hats, like just like Serge was talking about, the similar thing of just hitting everything under the sun just to get something done. I was able to actually I was tapped by a really good friend of mine, Joe Gunn, to come over and help work at this little band ragtag group of kids over at Fuse Effects New York, at the, at the beginning. So, and that's where he was showing me like all these disciplines that we needed to do to get these shots done. And I was actually doing a lot of effects work. So I got to touch that. I was already, I could model, I could texture if I needed to, I could do definitely effects. I was interested in that, but tracking always came as a part of my skill set, just from even the commercial world. It was always the process of, okay, we're done with shooting live. How do we get this in? How do we get this into the CG land? And that always fascinated me. How accurately can we be at getting that process over? So once I had all these disciplines and I was, decently proficient in all of them, tracking started to appeal more and more, because it is kind of a zero-sum game. You either have it, it either works or it doesn't. It either tracks, it sticks, or it doesn't, and there's not much room for creative notes, right? But there's lots of room for creative problem solving, in achieving that track to stick. Because contrary to popular belief, just putting a bunch of points on recognizable features is actually not actually going to generate a good track for you. You kind of have to be the AI in a sense. You have to use your head to estimate what the software is going to expect to come up with the best possible solution that's going to match whatever happened on set. So there is plenty of creative expression. It's hidden, it's kind of behind the scenes. It's there, and I definitely get my fix, and things like that, like where there is no playbook. You just have to make that shot work somehow. So you go and you make it work. Oh my god, I got a fly in here. I'm like Joe Biden in that video. Anyway, so that's the thing. It's there is an overlap between artistic and technical, and it is more of like a craft in a way. That's how I look at it. Because when I started tracking, it wasn't so obvious what to look for. It really wasn't. And it kind of took a lot of experience to get to a point where now I can look at a shot and go, oh no, that's going to be a problem, guys. You don't think it is, but it's there. And I think that's the experience speaking, rather than just knowing how the app works. It's almost like intuitive at this point. So yeah, I find, and I'll also find, like earnest work in that. You are, like Kim said, you are getting to touch every shot, or the shot that needs a camera. And of course, without it, there is no shot. And as I said in the presentation, you can't tell the story without it, without a framing, without representation, and there is like a whole team of pre-production guys on set, all working to make this little image, and then they pass it over to us, and we kind of have to do it justice and recreate it in CG. So it's like this, oh my god, I don't want to say it, but it's whatever. It's a passing of from the physical to the digital to then later be compelling. So it's like a magical whatever, Stargate thing. I don't know what else. Anyway, so that's how I look at it. At least I don't know if everybody else gets the same feeling of fascination, but I do. I like it. I enjoy it. It's super tedious, and it's extremely nerve-wracking. Especially when it's deadline driven and it's not sticking. Like what are you gonna do? But yeah, we persevere. We find ways to make it work, and I think that's where the discovery is.
So Bruno, we have 3 minutes left. Do we do one more question and then?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. All right. One more question.
Come on.
Do you have any tips for people new to tracking who are looking to get into tracking scanning beyond the phone consumer apps and stuff like that? Is there anything that you would suggest they look into or path to follow?
Yeah, there's actually a pretty big overlap, and within our world and metrology, the science of measuring things. There's a pretty big overlap between that and this. And I would say, looking at the tools that metrology uses, and those certified technicians of metrology, they use the LiDAR and then close structured scanning, light scanning, things like that. I think that's kind of the foray into getting into this world. Once you understand the concepts of how these tools work, I think it's a that's like the next step from just grabbing your iPad and and doing like a little LiDAR sweep or something like that, which is actually valid. I have used that on set, and I've always suggested for people to use on set. It's when there's nothing else available, use your iPad, with a LiDAR feature, or your phone with the LiDAR feature. But to get to kind of like a bigger level, I think it's important to stay current with this technology. Recently, I don't know if anybody follows this, but they released this cross-referencing spatial aware drones that scan things on a flight path, as they're flying, their LiDAR scanning things and beaming all that information back, and everything is just in like this one universe. It's really impressive. I think that's something that you kind of have to look outside of the industry to then be able to apply to the industry. So I'm trying to stay current on all these things. So that's my hint. Look elsewhere and then try to implement that in the field.
Yeah, I know, because I know what you do can tend to look boring or dry. But any artist, especially students who are just starting out, if you're trying to do something in visual effects, if you're matching to a live action plate, whatever you're doing, you've got, I don't care how good your dragon looks or how well rigged it is or lit. If it doesn't lock to a plate,
if it's bouncing,
you should know how to do that stuff on your own, at least at a basic level of tracking. If you want to get into VFX and you're a one-man, team or something. So it's good stuff. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. This was a pleasure. Yeah. Sorry for the sound. That's the only thing I can say.
Is it your dog or it's Kim's?
That's my dog. That's my dog. That's why I'm muting myself.
But Sergey, coming from someone who's tried a little bit his hand on tracking, thinking that it must not that be difficult, I'll bow down to you.
Thank you, sir.
It's incredible. I know how difficult it is. I tried my hand on this and I lost my temper a couple of times. So it's
patience is definitely a skill set.
That's not my strong suit. I don't know if
not for everyone.
Through the image here, but I'm not very patient. So it's
I've broken many keyboards, at 0 hour. Just this is not sticking. I don't know what else to do, and the shot is due in 2 hours. Kill me now. So, but yeah. Wow. Anyway.
Cool. So I guess that's a wrap.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you, Sergey.
Thank you, guys.
So much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, all three of you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Sergey.
Lydie, thank you.
Thank you.
Beautiful visuals.
Thank you.
And since I have an irate Pekingese behind me in the other room, maybe you should announce the winners.
So we have 2 winners, right? So there's the raffle winner, and I think it's a Swedish name. So Jacob Spare. So you're the raffle winner, and we also have a social media giveaway winner, which is probably more Italian. So Alberto Condognotto, and the Instagram handle is Codo Creation. So congratulations to both of you. You are our 2 winner for the show. And again, it's a wrap. So thank you, Lydie. Thank you, Serge. Thank you, Sergey. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
We did it.
Pleasure.
Awesome show, guys.
Thank you.